Assume you won the lottery, but you still had to work or volunteer due to a rule. Let's say you need to work or volunteer 10 hours a week. Would you choose to do work that seems really fun to you but doesn't pay much? Or would you volunteer for causes you believe in? This could be either part-time or full-time. For me, I would probably try working with local restaurants. Volunteering at an aquarium or zoo sounds appealing. Lastly, working at a car mechanic shop would be interesting. I would also look into starting a hackerspace or arcade in my town to help educate local kids and create a fun community spot. Assume the $2 million is flexible. You receive enough money to change your life, serve as a safety net, and relax while keeping busy. If you love your job and would continue doing that, feel free. I want to know, if you got a significant sum of money right now, what would you change? Story 1. I knew a guy who was a computer prodigy. He built a company right out of high school and sold it for millions at the age of 22. He did a lot of traveling and pursued hobbies, but by 23, he actually missed the structure in his life. He got his old high school job back at Barnes & Noble and loved it. People often say individuals won't work hard if they don't have to, but he actually found it quite enjoyable since his financial stress wasn't tied to his job. Story 2. I would just keep doing my job, though I'd probably stop picking up overtime. $2 million isn't nearly enough to retire on, especially considering my age and debts. Story 3. I'd probably help out at animal shelters. Clean up, walk, and socialize the dogs. Feed them whatever they need. Hanging out with animals is hardly work for an animal lover. Story 4. I think I would try to find a role where I can mentor young men just starting out, because it's a very underserved area in society, yet I know how much mentorship from older male friends helped me in life. That's not really culturally possible anymore, for whatever reason. Maybe the Catholics and Boy Scouts ruined it, I don't know, but it's really vital social infrastructure, and one of the major reasons for the reputed crisis of masculinity and the plummeting attainment of men is the lack of it. Story 5. I would start a business in a field that I like. Even if I won $50 million, I would still work in some capacity. There are a lot of businesses I would like to open up down the line. Story 6. It blows my mind how many people in this thread do not understand compounding interest and investment returns. With that money, you can easily make $150,000 per year for literally doing nothing but managing investments. If you do not spend that much and reinvest your earnings, the return becomes exponential pretty quickly. It is a free high-income job, and you would literally have the freedom to do whatever you want for work or volunteering to get real fulfillment. Story 7. Even if I had $50 million, I would still want goals and something to do on a daily basis. Early retirement seems appealing, but if you have no real goals or some form of contribution to society, your life becomes empty and dull. Story 8. Am I crazy? Or is 5% interest for $100,000 per year totally livable? Maybe it's just because I'm single and live in a fairly cheap area. Though I do see how just letting it compound and pretending it doesn't exist is more optimal. Story 9. My grandfather always asked the grandkids some version of this question to try to get them thinking about careers. If I had financial security and didn't need to worry about earning, how would I spend my time? I currently work with people in recovery for addiction and mental health issues. It's not easy, and some days are complicated and stressful. But I feel needed and useful, and I'm giving back to a hurting community now that I've gotten much healthier myself over the last couple of years. So many social issues of crime and homelessness have their root causes in addiction and mental health, so I feel like I'd stay in this field and continue the fight. Story 10. I would use 1/4 to 1/2 of the money to invest in a good sailing yacht. For work, I would use it for hosting lavish weddings and honeymoons at exotic destinations. For volunteering, I would provide free sailing training. Story 11. I would go on an as-needed basis at my job and work the absolute minimum, 1 shift every 3 months, and be a stay-at-home dad. I would have my wife leave her healthcare management job and do a telehealth provider job with much less stress for her. We would have about $1.5 million with zero debt after paying off the house and debts. Story 12. If I was comfortable retiring and needed to volunteer, I would want to just do community cleaning. Walking around parks, streets, beaches, and just cleaning up the trash. I wouldn't need to interact with people except maybe a small chat with people saying hi. I'd be making my community look nicer as well. Maybe also toss in some small repairs and cleanups for government buildings, like replacing signs and such. Story 13. I'd start a crime scene cleanup company. Just sit back and let the workers do their thing and collect. You can franchise one for a lot less than 2 million. Story 14. I would just keep working normally with less stress. I would not necessarily work less hard, but only work hard when I want to. That would be the main change. But 2 million isn't really going to last a lifetime. Story 15. I would volunteer to walk dogs. It would be brilliant, especially if you didn't need to rely on the financial side of a business. Just get a couple of good dogs you like and walk them. Story 16. That's easy. I would run a hobby shop and I would hang out there, selling and curating various things that I am interested in, like fishing, archery, gaming, etc. Story 17. I would keep working my job for 10 more years and then retire. On the very low end, the 2 million would then be worth 3.5 million. Add in the money I've already been trying to save, and I should make 150,000 or so a year without touching the money. Story 18. There are a few charities that walk the dogs of terminally ill people. I would happily spend more than 10 hours giving their pets some exercise and giving them a little peace of mind. Story 19. Can I go to university parallel to it? I'd love to study some science, not sure which one exactly yet, and work at the institute maybe, or some other related research facility, alternatively tutoring maybe. Story 20. I already work in a care home, so I would just continue doing that for 10 to 20 hours a week. It's especially easy to hit the minimum since 10 and 12-hour shifts are very common, especially since I can get asleep hours. Story 21. 2 million isn't retiring anybody nowadays, man. You have to invest that, hire a financial advisor, and use the money to get assets that will appreciate, then continue working. Story 22. My local aquarium has a volunteer scuba diving program to help maintain the aquatic habitat. I would get certified and go for that. Recently, I have also become interested in being a volunteer firefighter. I would probably look into that as well. Story 23. I would like to help people change their health and manage their weight. I would like to set up my own honest and truthful resource to help people lose weight or maintain a healthy weight. I think now the majority of weight management tools or resources come with the ulterior motive of money, so they sell products or false information to keep you coming back when you eventually fail. I would love the financial freedom to help people for free, even if only 1 or 2 people wanted it. Story 24. Ever see those pilots that transport dogs from kill shelters to better adoption areas? 2 million should cover training and a decent general aviation size to move dogs every few days. Story 25. I would probably work at one of my local grocery stores. I don't know why, but it seems like an appealing gig. Just stock shelves, take inventory, keep to myself, and so on. For volunteer work, I would do that at my local zoo. Story 26. Become an international backpacking trekking expedition leader in the Andes or Alps, or something similar. Essentially, guide people on walking tours through the mountains. Story 27. I would volunteer at the animal shelter and spend my remaining time working on grants to help provide food and veterinary services to people who adopt shelter dogs. In addition, the grant would ideally cover the cost to audit and hold these costs and services accountable for the dogs. Story 28. Ask companies around the country in many different trades and fields if I could shadow someone for 2 weeks to get a feel for the jobs and understand what they do. Story 29. It's a bit hard to say where work and volunteering end and a hobby starts. I have lots of hobbies that involve some kind of work but will probably never earn me a living. Could I just invest more time in those? For example, blogging, photography, cooking, and flying airplanes. All of them could theoretically be jobs if I invested the necessary time and stress, but if you say it's just for 10 hours a week, I would do those on a less stressful level. Story 30. If I had $2 million, I would pretty much do exactly what I'm doing. Actually, I would ask the owner to roll back to a contract with fewer hours. It would work better for everyone in the end. Story 31. Probably hanging with kids at a family or women's shelter. I'm a preschool teacher, so I'm wired to work with kids. I'd love to hang out and give them a sense of care and normalcy. That, or play with puppies at an animal shelter. Story 32. I would work at the counter of a local golf course or be the marshal, or any easy job they want me to do. Enjoy free or cheap golf when I'm not working and talk about golf when I am. Story 33. I would still be working my current job at Home Depot, but I would not be working full-time. I am not a flashy guy, so I know I could stretch that 2 million into almost a lifetime's worth of cash. I like working and having a job, but if I never had to worry about getting enough hours to make sure I can pay my bills and still have something left to put away for a rainy day, I would be on cloud nine. Story 34. Open source developer. I would travel the world and casually work on projects when I felt like it. Then, when the money ran out, I would have a skill set. Story 35. I've considered this exact scenario if my wife died suddenly and our life insurance kicked in. A quarter would go into a trust for my kids. Another quarter would pay off the house and other bills. The other half would be split between investment vehicles. I would continue to work so that bills would continue to get paid while the rest of my income could be used to save up. If my investing reaches over $50 million, I would retire from my job but then go into volunteering full-time somewhere or become a contractor. I'm not the type of person who can truly relax for long periods of time, so I would likely start a new job doing something else for a nominal fee. Story 36. This happened to me. I'm in my 30s now. I invested 90% of it and bought a house with the other 10%. I'm still working and living a bit more lavishly but saving 90% of the returns from the investments. Once I hit 3 million, I may try to retire. Story 37. Anybody ever seen those little mini Zamboni machines they use to clean the floors in big box retail locations? That's it. 5 a.m. Just driving around the store on my little beeping indoor street sweeper. Story 38. I have ideas for applications that I think could help improve things politically and financially, but I don't have the time or energy after working full-time to learn to code applications. If I didn't have to work, I could do that full-time. I'd at least like to try. Story 39. All of you saying take 4% annually or whatever are crazy. 50,000 a year is more than enough. A 500,000 house? Are you trying to live off of 2 million or splurge it right away and not live within your means? I could definitely keep working my same job for 10 hours and provide for my family for 50,000. I make almost 43 now, 7,000 would be a big help. Story 40. I would still work at my current job but be much more relaxed about stresses outside of work. Knowing that if something horrible happened to me, my family is still covered besides my insurance policies. Story 41. I would just keep on doing what I am doing now because I really enjoy it. Probably would not bother picking up overtime, though. With the $2 million, I would pay off everything, get a new car for my wife, and invest the rest. Story 42. Since I am a single dad, $2 million wouldn't nearly be enough to care for my son and myself without working. But let's say I won an amount of money where I didn't need to worry about money at all. I would keep my job, not for the salary, but for the sheer purpose of openly and honestly working against the bad actors that exist there. Without having to worry about how I'm perceived, I could do a lot of good. If I couldn't work there anymore, I would join the forestry service and be a forest ranger fire spotter. I would also volunteer at an animal shelter. Story 43. I'm still working my regular job. I like my job. $2 million really isn't enough money to quit working at my age, but it's certainly enough to change my outlook on things. I'd pay down all my debt, hide the rest of the money for myself in long-term savings and investments, and enjoy a paycheck that is now 75% disposable income. For what it's worth, working in restaurants is not fun. Or at least I never found it fun. It was exciting at times, and I do have a romantic sense of nostalgia for that time in my life, but the job was not enjoyable. Story 44. I'd feed and house the homeless. Set up a few tiny houses on my land rent-free. The only stipulation is they have to go to work and or learn a trade, preferably something they would enjoy. Story 45. Quit my main job, keep my part-time. I like my part-time, and with a 2 million security to deposit and invest wisely, I'll be set for life so I can pursue my hobbies, which revolve around my part-time work. Story 46. Sailing instructor. I was fortunate as a kid to get sent to one from some type of city program for free. I haven't sailed since my early teens but always have great memories of it. Story 47. I would volunteer at schools to help tutor kids in literacy. I would also love to work with kids and adults who have suffered trauma or adversities in their lives and help them learn to take care of themselves and become self-sufficient. Story 48. $2 million is not enough to just stop working anyway. For me, early retirement money would be like $5 million minimum. I would probably just be a lot pickier about where I work. Maybe take less pay for a more interesting startup or something, and I wouldn't worry if it wasn't going to succeed. Story 49. I would look at that $2 million as a buffer, something to help me secure long-term housing stability. I would probably discuss my options with a financial advisor, though. Otherwise, it would be business as usual. I would continue to work, better myself, volunteer, all that jazz. And yes, I might experiment with my career path a bit more. Story 50. I would love to teach English to people, especially children and young teenagers here in Colombia. I am from here. $2 million is more than enough to retire and never needing to work for money here. Story 51. I would volunteer at the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals or an animal rehabilitation facility. Animals make me happier than most humans. It would give me something to do, and it would be meaningful. Story 52. Okay, I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. I would pay off my debts and invest the rest so I'd have a nice steady stream of passive income. I'd then dial my lifestyle back to the bare minimum and donate as much of the interest as I could yearly. I'd spend all my spare time volunteering at any place that needed it. There is no point in keeping more than I need when there are others in need as well. I donate now, just wish it could be more.